Good morning. It's good to see this number out here at Ogwood. I figured we'd probably have a pretty good turnout since this is a very popular course. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm doing well, still trouble breathing just a little bit, but everything is lovely. This morning we will continue with our series from the book of Philippians. The title of today's message is Thinking of Others, and it's a topic that really means a lot to me. But I'll be reading from Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. Let's back up just a little bit and revisit what's been going on in chapter 1, where the Apostle Paul, writing to them, and he talked about he was joyful because of their partnership, the church at Philippi. He was joyful because of their partnership in the ministry. And whether we understand that or not, all of us have a ministry at some level, in some way. So in that way, we're all in partnership with each other. This word partnership is also translated as participation. In the latter part in the first part of chapter 2, matter of fact, but it's the Greek word koinonia, which is the word where we get fellowship. So their fellowship, their partnership, their participation with Paul in the spreading of the gospel brought him joy. And as he goes on, he's encouraging them to live a life worthy of their calling. And I don't know how you think about it, but what does your life look like concerning your calling into the Christian faith? Are you living a life that manifests who you say you are? So that's what Paul is doing here, is he's beginning to encourage this church. And then later on you'll see that there are two women in the church that are at odds with each other. So you can see he's leading up to that. And he also talks about his love for them. If you really want to understand the depth of Paul's love, look at all of his writings, and he mentions the things and the depths of his love. And so then we go on, and he's really at odds. He has a desire to be with God, but he has a desire to be with them. He said, I'm in a twixt between two. But he understood that it was more important for him at that time, and more important for them, that he remain so that he may build them up. And then, like I said, he's encouraging them to live a life worthy of their calling. And then he says in chapter 2, beginning in verse 1, so if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, fellows, those are characteristics of people who are walking worthy of their calling. There's encouragement. There is comfort from a loving heart. There's participation in the Spirit, or koinonia. And there's affection and sympathy. And then he says, if those things are in your life, then complete my joy. Remember, I said from the first chapter that he was joyful because of their participation. Now he's saying, complete my joy. So he's wanting even more joy than what he's already experiencing. Complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord with and of one mind. He's wanting them to be unified, which evidently there was some disunity in the church, and he's wanting them to be unified. He says, complete my joy. If these characteristics are who you are, then live a life worthy complete my joy, and be of the same mind. And then the next verse, the next two verses, is where I get the title of thinking of others. It says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself. Let each one of you look not to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. I don't know how many of you know my story, but in 1999, God got my attention in a big way, and it changed who I was. I was already saved, but I hadn't been living life worthy. I thought I had been called to preach, but I wasn't living a home life that manifested who I said I was. In that, I was very, very, very selfish. I didn't see it. I didn't understand it until God moved in my heart, opened my eyes, and showed me who I was as a man. That began a 3-year study of all I could about men and men's issues from a biblical perspective. And what happened was God began to really change me. I was very, very selfish. I still am selfish, but I'm not what I used to be. Fellas, as a husband, as a potential husband, as one who's about to get married, learn to think of others. Learn to think about your wife instead of yourself. Christ is our example. Look what he did. It says in Ephesians 5:25, for us to love our wives as Christ loved the church. Well, how did he love the church? He gave himself. He thought of others. What's the level of his giving? Look where he was before he came to earth. Sitting at the right hand of the Father, enjoying all the benefits of nothing but glory and bliss, sitting next to the Father in heaven. And he left all of it and placed himself in his wife's world in order that he might sanctify her and bring her into his. That's your job as a husband. That's your job as a husband. Give yourself away. There are 3 verses, and I won't go over all 3 of them, that have meant the world to me. And they will change relationships, not just a marriage, but any relationship. It'll change your relationship between me and you if you'll practice these things. But the one that really stands out for this message, thinking of others, is in Luke 6:44, I believe it is, where it says, give and it shall be given. In good measure, pressed down, shaken, and running over, shall men give unto you. Many people use that verse and say, see, if you give, God's going to give back to you. Oh, that verse says, shall men give to you. Unless you are playing the victim, you are a reciprocal being. And as you give yourself away to others, watch them respond. Unless they play the victim, they will respond favorably. How does that look? What would that look like in a marriage? Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Learn to give yourself away. Don't give yourself away looking for something in return, because if you're looking for something in return by giving yourself away, you're still being selfish. Give without the expectation of receiving back, and allow people to respond to you, and watch how it changes your life. Now, let's all go throw to the glory of God.